Hey, good morning once again. Ben here for Studio on the Lake. Got a fun little project this morning. Gonna show you how I make those small hummingbirds. The lake is beautiful this time of year. There's one of them. I typically don't paint them. I leave them. I burn them pretty roughly. Kind of get a shape and a silhouette. I'll either mount them on a wire, or in this case this has a flower, and then I go ahead and take the flower and, for lack of a better thing to do, stick it in a houseplant somewhere. It looks pretty good. There's a chunk of basswood. This one's for the body, and then the smaller piece there you set up for the wings. Makes a good use of the scrap material that you have laying around. You'll notice I have a big marker in my hand, and then looked over on the bench there and noticed that I actually have a pencil, which probably makes more sense, cutting out the silhouette. This one's kind of got a curved shape. One of the neat things about these hummingbirds is a lot of the scraps that are laying around, if you watch them flying and fighting at a feeder, doing their acrobatics, they contort and twist their bodies in all different kinds of shapes. There they are, cut out on the bandsaw. I could have probably gotten away with cutting those wings a little thinner, but I'm going to concave and give myself some room. As in most projects, always draw a center line. You'll go from that square block of wood down to what you're looking for, but it's always nice to have a reference. Remove the quick stuff with not so gentle strokes of the knife. As with most carving, you start out with a block. Start working your way down, taking away everything that doesn't look like, in this case, a hummingbird. Those Kutzall bits, that's a yellow, that's a medium. All the tools that I use are down in the description down there. Also, you look in the lower right hand corner, hit the subscribe button. Tons and tons of videos I'll be doing in the next year or two. I've got so many different ideas, not necessarily ideas, but projects I've done in the past that are interesting that I will redo and film. You'll notice a handpiece is now blue. That's the newer of the two, new being year and a half old. And I've got a larger bit in that one. Oh, something happened there. The tail broke off at kind of a weak spot right in there. As usual, I stare at it for a minute and decide if I can glue it back on. And then, true to form, I think I'll wedge it. Wedge being, put a wedge shape in the tip of the tail there and mount it a little bit higher and give it a little more wood to play with. One of the fun things of carving is the mistakes that happen in the middle. Not necessarily always fun. Another benefit of using wood is there's a wood stove not too far in front of me right there. And if you get too annoyed by what you just did or what happened, you bite the bullet, throw it in the stove. Evidence disappears. Same thing with the wings, rough carving. That's why I left it so thick, as you can see. I'm concaving out the inside. Get a round shape to the wings. These wings are not 100% accurate. Get design creep going on over the years. Initially, I probably started with a photograph or an outline with actual hummingbird wings. And so many of these birds don't quite look right if you follow them exactly. I don't know why that is. It's a silly statement, but if you carved them exactly, you wouldn't be very pleased with them. You have to kind of go off on a artistic or autistic bent on occasion and fix what is visually not pleasing about them. These I do pretty quick. They're one of the projects I feel like just sitting down, I don't feel like thinking too very hard. These are pretty straightforward. I'll switch to a diamond bit in there and take the fuzz off. One of the things of power carving and basswood is there is a lot of fuzz in that. Professional bird carvers that do the professional decoys prefer to use Tupelo, which doesn't fuzz up on that. I'm burning in a ridge line across the top of the wings and kind of setting out the design of the wings, the different feather patterns on there. And again, not exact, and I am going pretty quick. You can really take your time and put in some fine feathers and accurate feather groups, but this is meant to be just a representation. I highly encourage you to do one of these. They're pretty straightforward, simple, and fun, and who doesn't like hummingbirds? You get into squirrels and deer and various different wildlife running around out there. You'll never hear somebody saying, "Oh man, those things annoy me. I took out the shotgun and took them out." Relief and feather group there. Switch to a diamond ball joint. A ball works really nice. You can go in any general direction that you want, and it also makes those nice little bumps that feathers have. The idea here is to take away most of those straight lines. You've heard it said a million times, I'm sure. Nature has no straight lines. And I'm not 100% sure that's true. I'm looking out the window and there's a couple of pine trees that are pretty damn straight. I'm burning pretty hot here. All these burn marks, I go ahead and take the burnt portion off with a brass or a steel small toothbrush looking wire wheel, and it comes right down. If you wanted to, I could come back over this with a stone. I probably will, and define those shapes a little bit more, and then back to burning, and then back to stoning, and do it ad nauseum until you get what you want. If you were to paint this, which I'm not going to do, I kind of like the burnt look in there. If I were to paint it, it'd be minimal. It'd be the ruby throat on there, perhaps. And the rest of it I'd kind of leave alone. But the burn and the burning and the stoning, if you were to paint it, you put a base coat over it, and all of those lines and definitions all come out, and you really can get a feather-looking operation going, especially if you're talented with the paint portion of it. You can spend just as long painting as you did carving these. The tail turned out pretty nice for having flipped off in my lap here not too long ago. Eye marks. I suspect these are probably 4 millimeter. Taking a guess. I didn't look to see what the size was on that card. I keep, as you can see, a ton of eyes around, and when I get ready to do a project, of course, I'm almost always out of the one that I want. If I'm doing a loon, working on a 14, 15 millimeter red eye, then I'll have everything but that. Quick wood, great stuff for doing repairs and particularly for setting eyes. It's a 2-part epoxy. Their claim to fame is you can sand, you can carve, you can finish. It does take a little different finish on it. You couldn't put this over something in a huge patch and paint right over it and not notice it, because it has a different texture. Absorbs the paint a little bit differently. I just press it into the eye socket. Eye socket will allow the eye to go down a little bit. They're a little bit bigger than the eye, and I just press them in like so. And then on a decorative decoy or something, I would go ahead and contour the feather grouping by using the back of the knife. Put in eyelids and that sort of thing. On this one, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to take off. That's something I do, is pressing them in with the back of the knife. I actually carved the back of a knife off to do that. And now I'm just kind of gently scraping away the quick wood. It goes on a rag there, known as the jeans. This is a bad habit, wiping your hands on your jeans, wiping stuff off on your jeans. Then when you get ready to go to work and you get on a nice pair of dress pants, you don't know what to do with your hands and get all fidgety. You have to actually take a paper towel or something and wipe your hands off. There's the beak. I know to you it probably looks like a nail. See now why I left the tip of that on there. It looks something like some character out of Seuss now with that nail sticking on there. We'll take care of that shortly. Looking for just a little placement for the wings. I don't know why I did that. I know where they go and how they set. They're starting to kind of look like a hummingbird. Everything's put in with 5-minute epoxy, 2-part. We've talked about that before. There's a little stone in there, and that puts in a V groove. Same thing with your veiner. If you were to use it by hand, that would be what that was. And I'm just setting in basic contours with it. Gives the burning pen, as you can see, kind of a place to go, and then the burning pen will further define. Yeah. And you can do this over and over again and really put some detail in there. You'll notice I'm kind of going for rough directions and feather shapes here, not getting too fancy, but you can spend a lot of time on this. As much as you like, depends on what you're doing. When I'm filming, I'm attempting to get through a basic setup and let you know how this is done, give you one over the world. But when you get your stuff out, you take all the time you need. It's a hobby. You're supposed to be able to relax and do this. Got to admit, the filming takes a little bit of that out, but the film just sits in the background and runs, and then the major work is done in the editing. I have to look up every now and again and make sure that I'm in frame. It's starting to look like a hummingbird. Back to that ball, diamond, or round. Give his head a little more definition. I kind of like that, other than the Seuss part about it with the nails sticking out. Got a cold there. This is a fun part right here. Sparks flying. If you were doing metal work and analyzing those sparks, you'd say, man, that's good tool steel. And just the way those sparks are coming off there, know what? It's not. It's a nasty, nasty nail. Took the nail portion off of it, and a little bit I grind down along the top of it and give it more of a beak shape. Haven't contoured back down into the nail yet from the face there. And it looked a little too straight to me, so go ahead and put a little bit of a bend in it. There you go. Real happy with that. Time to do a little burning work on the head, get the eyebrows, for lack of a better reference. No particular pattern here. I'm just touching off little small feather groups. Not a whole lot of heavy-duty detail. Looking for color more than anything else. You do kind of have to stay where the feathers would normally flow off there. You'll end up with some funky looking lines. And as normal, the light and dark shadows will draw your eye in a direction you really don't want to go. You can see this is a little darker than the rest. It always goes on darker. It tends to lighten up. If I'd have burned yesterday and then come back to burn today, yesterday's burning would have been a little bit lighter. And I will take that wire brush and brush some of the carbon off there. You can lighten it right up. Get a really neat effect just by burning some of these. You'll see a couple birds in the future that I don't paint and burn the heck out of. I mean, we're talking 15-20 hours worth of burn work in there, layer upon layer upon layer. Fast and Furious. This is speeded up 3 or 4 times. I don't remember. I tend to pick one of those 2 speeds at random. I think there's probably 3 hours in the making of this. Working pretty steady straight through. And we get it down to what, 20 some minutes? So it's not too bad. Not a whole lot of heavy editing in this. I left a lot of sequences in to give you an idea of what's going on. This is the fun part where it's getting down to where it's really looking like what it's supposed to look like. Time to lay in some long tail feather looking stuff. Feather shaping on that. You kind of follow those burn marks that I set in there. If you were doing this by hand, there would be a stop cut, basically, and a little round over on those, and back to the burn pin, redefine, and put in some barbs, feather barbs. They are layered feathers, of course, laying over. You never see a full feather unless it's sticking out on the wrong direction. You always get a portion of one side, typically. And we're just looking for flow into here. Throughout the video, I noticed there's one portion on the tail there that I just kept ignoring, and at some point I'll come back, redefine that. But the beauty of this is 3-4 days from now, or a month, or 6 months, if you get to looking at it and something about it you don't like, you can always come back and redefine the burning patterns on it. I was setting a little more into the wings there. You spend a little time around the eyes there, you can get a real pleasant looking face. That's what how my wife judges these birds. If they're happy, they're smiling. There's that wire brush, toning everything down, blend stuff in a little bit. And there is a finished hummingbird. Being a little rough on his head there. There you have it, hummingbird complete. Hey, as usual, this is Ben with Studio on the Lake. If you like the video, go ahead and click the like. By all means, do subscribe, support the channel, and allow me to make more for you. Till next time, hey, have a good day.